Shadow Forget. Wet, 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 wet. Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Excited to do an album review and talk to you guys and do a video. I love doing videos. That's why I'm doing this thing. Yeah, thanks again for 10,000 subscribers. Expect a 10,000 thank you video this weekend. I will be plugging some of my favorite channels and just, you know, being humble and thank you. Before I get started on this thing, there's a link in the D box to a new Gonja Sufi remix album. Of course, all remixes of tracks from his new LP, A Sufi and a Killer, that I gave a 9 out of 10 to when I reviewed that album on Album Reviews. It's out now on Warp Records. Just like I said, down there in the D box, stream the whole thing. Pretty good. Alright, this is the debut LP from Twin Shadow, which is the solo project of Brooklyn musician George Lewis Jr. A lot of you guys were asking for it. I got a promo copy of it, and I guess it got pitchforked with a good score too, so I figured, why the f not? I basically saw no harm in reviewing this, and I'm glad I did, because what I didn't know, or didn't remember, rather, is that this thing is on Terrible Records, which is the project of Grizzly Bear member Chris Taylor, who co-produced this album with Twin Shadow. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I have expressed before that I feel like Chris Taylor is an amazing producer. Almost everything that guy touches, sound-wise, turns to gold. But what is this thing? What can you expect if you put this on your ears? Well, I'd like to call this just bedroom recorded dance pop with a ton of ambition. It's true, there is a bit of messiness, a bit of shabbiness, maybe this imperfection recording-wise on this album. Maybe a flub here, a very slightly off note there. However, I wouldn't say it makes the record difficult to listen to. The songwriting is still really good, and the sound effects, post-production, top-notch. Some moments on this LP get really slow and moody and lurk like a mutant. The tracks Castles in the Snow, or even the opener of this album, kind of come to mind. Very dark moments here, but still keep a very steady beat. While other tracks kind of feel like they're reliving the heyday of the dancier side of post-punk in the 80s. A lot of disco influence, something that kind of reminds me of bands like Shriekback on classic singles like My Spine is the Bassline. Just that type of music that was highly, highly influential to that DFA record sound. Songs like For Now and Shooting Holes at the Moon kind of bring that to mind. I am enjoying it even though it's not the most amazing dance music I've ever heard. I do kind of want to warn you guys that I am a little bit of a sucker for this kind of stuff. Whether it's a slower track or a faster track, there are even a few intros on songs that I don't really care for with this thing. But no matter where a track may start or end up, the hooks are always razor sharp. They're pretty much one of the best things this album has going for it. I know that even if I'm somewhere for a second where I don't want to be, I'm always going towards somewhere I do want to be. The recording could be a little cleaner, could be a little less money, but what you have here is just the basics of a good album. A strong foundation, guitar, bass, drums, and vocals, just colored and layered with splashes of synths, strings, harmonized guitar solos, background vocals, kind of executed with a slightly retro sound that's really popular right now. And I'm telling you, if you're a songwriter and you have a good song, you want to produce it, get Chris Taylor to do it. He will pour magic all over the mix. I mean, I know I'm loving it, but Cal, what do you think about Forget? I tell you about Forget, but I can't remember. Yeah. I hate Cal Chichester. Even though there is room for improvement here, most certainly, it could be more distinct. I'm still feeling a really beefy 8 on this album. A beefy one. I think if Twin Shadow shoots for a more well-produced LP the next go-around, he's going to come out with something amazing. If this, as is as good as it is. That's where I'm sitting on this thing. Do you like this album? Do you hate it? And why? And what's your favorite track off of this thing? I really do want to know. I want to see where it kind of compares with some of my favorite tracks on the LP. Anthony Fantano, Twin Shadow, Forget Forever.